Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. If you're watching my videos, it's probably because you've been conned, duped, deceived, or betrayed by a sociopath. Even though it was the perp who violated your trust, you feel like a chump. The last thing you may want to do is admit what happened, even to yourself. I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and tonight I'll explain why we need to talk about our experiences with sociopaths. At the end of this presentation, I'll answer your questions. To join the chat or ask a question, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. So once we finally figure out that we are dealing with a sociopath, many of us do not tell other people what really happened. After all, it's embarrassing to admit that no, we didn't see it coming, and yes, we fell for the scam. If we do venture to describe the sociopath's true behavior, we may be met with disbelief. What, they say? He's so charming, or she's so sweet. They couldn't possibly have done that. You must have misinterpreted. We quickly learn that people do not understand what we are talking about. Either they don't believe us, or they ostracize us. So we stop talking. We try to hide what happened, even from ourselves. Our silence about being betrayed by sociopaths has three effects. First, because we keep our mouths shut, the world does not learn just how many social predators are living in our midst. Second, other survivors don't hear what can happen, so they believe that they are alone in their despair. And third, our personal pain stays bottled up within us, which impedes our own recovery. So let's look more closely at the first point. When we don't talk about what happens to us, who benefits? The perp. Because we don't talk, the sociopath who betrayed us gets away with his or her atrocious behavior and moves on to the next target. Sociopaths do not get the terrible reputation that they deserve. Now, I understand that if you're still involved with a person or you've recently extricated yourself, you may need to be cautious. Remember, your own health and safety always come first, and if it is best for you to keep quiet, then do it, at least for the time being. I also understand that you may not be psychologically or emotionally ready to talk about what happened, but perhaps later you can begin to reveal your experience. Silence benefits the sociopath you encountered and all the other sociopaths who prowl the planet. Because we don't talk, society doesn't know they exist, and they continue to get away with their manipulation and deceit. We all need to know that wolves in sheep's clothing live among us. Sometimes they look scary, but usually they don't. They seem to be just like the rest of us, at least at first. They're attentive and charming. They appear to be our best friend or a pillar of the community. When we share what happened, it's a warning to the entire community. And sometimes other survivors directly benefit from our stories. Here's an example. A few years ago, I appeared on the TV show ABC 2020. I wasn't talking about my story, but about what happened to a Lovefraud reader, a woman who lost even more money than I did, to a con artist romantic partner. Afterwards, I received an email from another woman who saw the show. She said that watching the show unleashed hidden emotions within her that she had tried to bury regarding her own situation. She said her healing had begun, and month by month, she was learning how to not be so hard on herself. So because one survivor was brave enough to tell her story, another experienced a release. When we talk about our experiences, when we stand up and say, yes, this happened to me, it helps other people who have been targeted realize that they are not alone. And this can go a long way towards recovery. Finally, talking about our experience helps our own healing. When we share what happened, we are no longer carrying the burden of our stress and pain all by ourselves. I recently experienced something like this. It wasn't a run-in with another sociopath, but it was a problem that was gnawing at me, a decision that I needed to make. It caused a knot in my chest for weeks and weeks. Finally, I shared my worries with my best friend. Just by sharing it, I felt relief. I still had to decide what to do, but I felt better. I realized that it is much easier to share a burden than to carry it alone. Still, we do need to be careful about whom we talk to. A big reason why it's difficult to recover from the devastation of a sociopath is that we feel so isolated, like no one really understands what we experienced. And unfortunately, this perception is often correct. People do not understand what happened. And that's why a community like Lovefraud is so important. Everyone who joins these videos or reads and posts on my website does understand what happens in these situations. To know that someone truly empathizes with us is extremely validating, especially when a sociopath has been calling us crazy and mentally unbalanced. Validation can truly be helpful to our recovery. In summary, talking about sociopaths can accomplish 3 things. First, warning the rest of the world about the predators who live among us. Second, helping someone else recognize that they are not alone. And third, helping our own recovery by sharing the burden of our experience. Again, I want to emphasize that I understand it may not always be safe to talk about our personal situations, but we can share general information. We can send someone a link to Lovefraud. We should educate ourselves about personality disorders, and then when the opportunity arises, talk about them. Knowledge is power. The first step in protecting ourselves from sociopaths is knowing that they exist. Talking helps with this. Then, sharing our experience and understanding enables all of us to move forward. Okay, so we have a question. Okay, so Kaina says, I'm trying to figure out why the borderline/narcissist moved out of the community after causing so much drama. Any idea why? Actually, that kind of ties into one of the comments that I made in this presentation. Typically, they move out because they're starting to earn that bad reputation, and people may be starting to find out what this person is all about. Maybe you did talk to people, or maybe other people have had experience with this person. I mean, typically sociopaths move out because they've burnt their bridges, and that's typically what happens. And this is why it's so important, especially if you encounter someone who's new in the community or who has just come from someplace else, just moved there. People like that are often difficult to investigate. They're difficult to validate because they have no history. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they've done in the past. So that's a big reason why lots of sociopaths move around a lot. My ex-husband, for example, I mean, he was from Australia, and then he moved to California, claiming that he was going to work in Hollywood and be a scriptwriter. And then he moved from California to Massachusetts. And then he moved from Massachusetts to Florida. And then he moved from Florida to New Jersey, where I am. So they're always on the lookout for a greener pasture or a place where nobody understands who they are or what they've done. So, in those situations, it can be difficult to get information about somebody because they're new. Nobody knows them. Still, in those cases, that's why it's good to talk about sociopaths in general. Because if you are at least aware that they exist, and anytime we talk about it, it helps other people understand that they exist, then it just helps us to fill in the blanks when we come across somebody where there seems to be some kind of a question. Oh, Sammy's got a donation. Great. Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, so Poop Dog Returns. So that's a cute name. Who do I know who to trust? I have talked to people about my victimization and shame experiences, and they gaslighted me. Yeah. That's why, as much as I advocate talking about what our experiences are, as I just said in this video, we do have to find the right people to talk to, because that happens, because people don't understand. I mean, we haven't yet gotten to critical mass. I mean, it's better than it used to be. When I started Lovefraud, back in 2005, nobody was talking about anything. But at least now, words like gaslighting have come into the lexicon, and people know what it is, and know that there are manipulators out there, and know that there are liars out there. So, looking for someone to talk to, what I would suggest is that participating in this type of environment, where you can post questions here on Lovefraud, because we all know exactly what you're talking about. We have a forum on Lovefraud where people post questions and other folks respond. I would certainly suggest that you do that. In some cases, there are some meetup groups. For a long time, there was nothing, but as I said, the word is starting to get out there, so there is more awareness, so you may be able to find a meetup group. You always need to be cautious, and because I've actually heard of meetup groups that were infiltrated by perpetrators, so that could be a problem too. So the key is to trust your own intuition. If you get a feeling that somebody is not on the up and up, that somebody might be manipulative, that might be taking advantage of you, pay attention. I mean, your intuition is designed to protect you from predators, and it's always correct. And if you ever get a bad feeling about somebody, then definitely pay attention, because that's your warning sign. So, you kind of have to take it slow, and feel people out, and reveal a little bit, and then see if they can take that little bit and they seem to be able to accept it. So it can be hard for your friends and family, because friends and family can sometimes be judgmental, especially if they were saying to you as you were going along, I told you that this person was bad, or something like that. So that can be problematic. So I would suggest, finding a nice community like Lovefraud, or looking around and finding other organizations like it, or just other people who have truly understand that what's happened. I know that when I first started figuring out what was going on and what had happened to me, I would start to tell people about it, and people would say, "Oh, I know someone that happened to," or this happened to me. This happened to this person. So, it's out there, and sometimes you can find someone who knows exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so Chanel asks, is there a relationship between ADHD and sociopathy? And the answer is yes. There actually is a genetic relationship between these two disorders. And what that means is that the genes that are related to ADHD are also related to antisocial behavior, antisocial personality disorder. So yes, there absolutely is a connection between those two disorders. Okay, so Natalia says, I ended a relationship with a borderline/narcissist sociopath. In all honesty, I lost trust to people. I am afraid that in the future I won't be able to form a relationship out of fear. Any advice? Yes. That is exactly why it is so important to commit to your own emotional recovery. It takes work, and it's important. We really have to understand that, yes, this happened. Yes, it damaged us. Yes, we're suffering because of the experience. We have pain, we have emotional wounds, and we need to commit ourselves to addressing those injuries. I've talked about it lots of times in these videos. Essentially, what you need to do is allow yourself to process the emotional pain of what you went through. And what that means is that you allow yourself to feel it. Which, if that means that you cry, if it means that you get angry, however it comes out, you need to allow that to happen, because the idea is to get the emotional pain and grief and betrayal and disappointment to get it out of your system. And that's how it's done. It's done by allowing yourself to feel it. And this can be scary. It's definitely uncomfortable, but it's worth the trouble. It's worth the work to do it. Because if you don't, all that pain just stays inside you and festers and attracts another sociopath. So, yes, you can recover. I totally recommend working on it. We have lots of webinars that can help you, but you're the one who has to do the work. Even if you go for therapy, a therapist can talk to you, but you're the one who has to process the emotions. No one can do that for you. But if you do it, it's absolutely worth it, and you can come out the other side and really have the wisdom to be able to know who is an appropriate person to share your life with. So yes, it can be done, and just give yourself the time and permission to recover. So Kindness says, she told me she moved every 2 years. Well, she's got her pattern down. That, yes, she realizes that she's burned her bridges and it's time to move on to someone else. Okay. Call Boy says, cornering a sociopath is like trying to nail Jello to a wall. Right. So for that reason, let's not get in the corner with a sociopath. Once you realize that someone has these tendencies, that's a good reason to go in the other direction. Okay. So Sammy comments, gaslighting is one of the worst forms of their torment. And another thing these people do is to try and make you doubt yourself. Trust yourself, trust your gut. That's the purpose of gaslighting. The purpose of gaslighting is to make you doubt your own perceptions. And yeah, it's shocking the way they engage in gaslighting. And so just to explain that a little bit further, gaslighting means, saying things to you and actually doing things that make you doubt yourself and make it so that you feel like you can't trust what you're seeing. And if it goes on long enough, and sociopaths are quite capable of making it go on long enough, it makes you feel like you're losing your mind. And it is based on that movie called Gaslight. It came out in the 40s with Ingrid Bergman. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend it, because it's actually very accurate about how a sociopath behaves. So, of course, they never say that the person is a sociopath in the movie, but it just lays out exactly what goes on. So I guess you could get it on Netflix or someplace, and I would certainly suggest watching the movie because it lays out exactly what happens. It's very damaging, and that's why it's just so important to really understand what sociopaths are doing and to recognize and understand that they're doing it intentionally. Essentially, sociopaths are interested only in power and control. They do not have the capacity to love, so consequently, the only thing that gives them satisfaction in their relationships with other people is being able to have power and control over someone else. And one of the ways that they do that is by gaslighting, because essentially what it does is it manipulates your mind. And when that happens, you're easier to control. Plus, they find it entertaining. They actually get a charge out of it. So, Michelle, thank you so much. So Michelle says, all right, so Michelle says she saw a video by Sam Vaknin, and he says that one thing a victim can't regain is their empathy. Seriously, do you believe this? Hard for me to believe, and I never heard this before. Okay. Well, keep in mind, Sam Vaknin is a psychopath himself. So Sam Vaknin has absolutely no idea what empathy is, because he's never been able to accomplish, to feel it. I would totally disagree with that. Yes, someone who has been targeted by a sociopath absolutely can recover their empathy. And the way you do that is through the healing process that I just explained. I know for me, the devastation that I experienced because of what my ex-husband did to me, it actually had the effect of shattering the wall that I had around my heart, which enabled me to feel even more empathy than I had before that whole experience. So, no, Sam Vaknin is not correct on this one. And yes, it is certainly possible to feel empathy after this experience. It does require recovery, and recovery is a bumpy ride, absolutely a bumpy ride. It could take a fairly long time, months. Some people it takes longer, depending on how long you've been involved with a sociopath. But you absolutely can get through it. Absolutely. And as I said, the theme for tonight's presentation, when you can find other people to talk to, who can help you, whether it's a knowledgeable therapist, and keep in mind that not all therapists understand this. So if you go for therapy and the person doesn't quite believe what you're talking about, or you feel like they don't get it, go to another therapist. They don't all get it. And it is very important that if you are sharing with a therapist, that they understand and are able to help you. But anyway, recovery is possible. And as we build each other up, it enables us to be stronger so that more of us don't fall for sociopaths in the first place. And that's the goal. That's what we want. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to Michelle and Sammy for your wonderful contributions. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for the next episode of Lovefraud Live. Good night.